The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 47 species filled the circular arena, their scales, feathers, and skin glowing with agitation under the soft lighting. At the center of it all stood Ambassador David Chen, representing humanity. He stood calm and silent, his hands clasped behind his back. "This is unacceptable," roared Chancellor Vrix, his forearms gesturing wildly. The reptilian leader of the council slammed his tail against the floor. "Your species has committed an act of extreme violence." Ambassador Chen raised an eyebrow. "We responded to a distress call, Chancellor." "Nothing more? Nothing more?" A insectoid representative clicked forward, her antennae trembling. "You destroyed an entire pirate fleet. 200 ships. Thousands of lives. Pirates who were bombing civilian colonies," Chen replied softly. "They had already killed 15,000 innocents. They refused our warning. They refused our offer to surrender. But you eliminated them in 47 minutes, another voice shouted from the crowd. "No species has that capability. It's terrifying." Chen nodded slowly. "Yes, we eliminated them. Quickly and efficiently." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found common ground in their fear of humanity. Words like warmongers and murderers echoed through the space. Chancellor Vrix called for silence. When the noise died down, he fixed his cold eyes on Chen. "Ambassador, the Council requires an explanation. How can humanity claim to be peaceful when you demonstrate such capacity for destruction?" Chen stepped forward. His voice remained steady and clear. "Chancellor, members of the Council, I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding. Humanity doesn't wage wars. We eliminate threats." Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. "What is the difference?" asked Kreth, a representative from the peaceful Velen species. His blue skin paled with genuine concern. "Violence is violence." Chen pulled up a holographic display. It showed the recent incident in detail. "Let me show you what actually happened." The hologram displayed a beautiful colony world called New Haven. Peaceful cities dotted the landscape. Then the pirate fleet arrived. Red beams rained down on civilian targets. Buildings exploded. People ran in terror. The pirate warlord Krax the Bloody sent a message, Chen explained. The hologram showed a scarred alien face, laughing. He demanded tribute. When the colonists refused, he began the bombardment. 15,000 dead in the first hour. Council chamber fell silent, watching the horror unfold. 3 human ships were patrolling nearby. Captain Sarah Morrison responded immediately. The hologram shifted to show 3 sleek human vessels approaching. Captain Morrison sent a message to Krax. The recording played. A woman's voice, calm but firm, filled the chamber. "This is Captain Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You are ordered to cease fire immediately and surrender. You have 5 minutes to comply. This is your only warning." Krax's face appeared on screen, laughing harder. "Humans, I've heard stories about you. Come and try to stop me if you dare." Chen paused the playback. Captain Morrison gave them 5 minutes. She gave them a choice. Krax chose violence. The hologram showed what happened next. The human ships moved with precision. Their weapons fired with incredible accuracy. One by one, pirate ships exploded or powered down, disabled but intact. The entire engagement lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, the pirate fleet was gone. "See the difference?" Chen asked quietly. "We gave warnings. We offered mercy. When that mercy was refused, we acted decisively to eliminate the threat to innocent lives." "But the death toll," Kreth whispered. "So many pirates died." Jun pulled up another display. Actually, 63% of the pirate forces survived. Every ship that surrendered was spared. Every pirate who laid down weapons was taken prisoner. They're currently awaiting trial for their crimes. They'll receive fair treatment and legal representation. The council members exchanged glances. This wasn't matching their expectations. "We don't enjoy violence," Chen continued. "We don't seek glory in battle. We don't believe in honorable combat or testing our strength against enemies. When we identify a threat to innocent lives, we eliminate that threat as quickly and efficiently as possible. Then we stop. Chancellor Vrix leaned forward. But what if the Council had been negotiating with cracks? What if we could have found a diplomatic solution? Chen's expression hardened slightly. Chancellor, how many innocent people would have died during those negotiations? Cracks had no intention of stopping. His entire business model required terror and death. He was a threat that needed to be eliminated. This philosophy troubles us, Vrix admitted. The power to decide who lives and dies. We don't decide lightly, Chen interrupted. Every action is carefully assessed. We gather intelligence. We look for peaceful solutions. But when someone is actively murdering innocents and refuses to stop, we act. We don't wage war with honor and ceremony. We eliminate threats with precision and mercy. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Finally, a small voice spoke up. It was Ambassador Theta from the Crystalline Quartz Collective. Perhaps, Theta chimed softly. We are uncomfortable because humans are efficient at something we prefer to ritualize and prolong. Before anyone could respond to that observation, alarms suddenly blared throughout the council chamber. An urgent message flashed across every screen. Chancellor Vrix's face went pale. Emergency transmission from the border sectors. The main display showed a massive fleet, thousands of warships, all bearing the symbol of the Vraxian Dominion. A face appeared on screen. Emperor Thrax, ruler of the Vraxian people. Greetings, Galactic Council. Thrax's voice dripped with menace. The Vraxian Dominion has been patient long enough. We demand the surrender of 12 council worlds along our border. You have 30 days to comply. If you refuse, we will take them by force. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted into panic. Ambassador Chen pulled out his communication device and sent a single message to Human Command. New threat identified. Begin assessment protocol. He looked up at the panicking council and spoke quietly to himself. And so, it begins again. Humanity doesn't wage wars, they eliminate threats. # Part 2. Assessment. Phase 3 weeks had passed since Emperor Thrax's ultimatum. The Galactic Council had spent every day in heated debate. Some wanted to surrender the worlds. Others wanted to fight. Most just wanted more time to negotiate. Meanwhile, the Vracian Dominion fleet grew larger at the border. Intelligence reports showed them gathering supplies and troops. They were preparing for conquest. Ambassador Kreth, of the Velen people, walked through the human sector of the council station. His blue skin flickered with concern. The Velens were a peaceful species. They had never won a war in their history. Kreth feared what was coming. He found what he was looking for. Restricted area guarded by human soldiers. Kreth had diplomatic clearance, so they let him pass after a quick scan. Inside, he discovered something unexpected. Dozens of humans worked at holographic displays. Maps filled the air. Data streams flowed across screens. But there were no weapons being loaded. No soldiers drilling for battle. Just quiet, focused work. Can I help you, Ambassador? A woman's voice spoke from behind him. Kreth turned to see Commander Sarah Okonkwo. He had read about her. She had led human forces in 3 previous conflicts. Each time, victory came swiftly, with minimal casualties. Commander, I was curious about human preparations, Kreth admitted. The Council debates endlessly, but I wondered what humanity was doing. Sarah smiled slightly. We're conducting a threat assessment. Would you like to see? She led him to a central display. It showed the Vraxian Dominion in incredible detail. Every military base, every warship, every supply depot was marked and analyzed. This is remarkable intelligence, Kreth breathed. How did you gather so much information? Carefully, Sarah replied. We've been watching the Vraxians for years. They're an aggressive, expansionist empire. We knew they'd eventually threaten council space. Kreth pointed to markers showing civilian population centers. You've mapped their cities too? Of course. Sarah pulled up detailed information about Vraxian civilian life. Threat assessment isn't just about military targets. We need to understand the entire society. Most Vraxians are regular people living under an authoritarian government. They didn't choose this war. Their emperor did. A young human analyst approached with a datapad. Commander, we've finished the leadership analysis. Emperor Thrax rules through fear and military strength. Without him and his inner circle of 12 generals, the Vraxian military command structure would collapse. Sarah nodded. Excellent work, Lieutenant Chen. Kreth felt a cold sensation in his chest. Commander, are you planning to assassinate their leaders? Sarah looked at him seriously. We're planning to eliminate a threat while minimizing casualties. That includes Varaxian casualties. But you're talking about removing their government? Kreth's voice rose. That's not defense, that's regime change. Kreth, Sarah said gently, let me tell you a story. 20 years ago, my home colony was attacked by raiders. The council sent peacekeepers to negotiate. Those negotiations lasted 6 months. During that time, the raiders killed 5,000 people, including my sister and her family. Sarah's eyes grew distant with memory. The council forces eventually drove the raiders away. They celebrated it as a victory. But those 6 months of honorable warfare cost thousands of lives. If someone had simply eliminated the raider leadership on day 1, my sister would still be alive. Kreth understood her pain, but he struggled with the philosophy. Isn't there value in trying to find peaceful solutions? Always, Sarah agreed. That's why we gather so much intelligence. We look for every possible alternative. Can we negotiate? Can we isolate the aggressor diplomatically? Can we use economic pressure? She gestured to the displays. But Emperor Thrax has already rejected peace. He's demanded surrender. He's mobilizing for invasion. He's a clear and present threat to billions of innocent people. What will you do? Kreth asked quietly. Sarah pulled up a document marked Operation Clean Slate. It detailed a 72-hour plan to completely dismantle Vraxian military capability, eliminate every military installation, disable their fleet, and remove their command structure, all simultaneously. Then we'll immediately begin humanitarian operations to help Vraxian civilians. Kreth read through the plan, his horror growing. This is terrifyingly efficient. Yes, Sarah agreed. War is terrifying. That's why we don't wage it. War is what happens when you care about honor, glory, and testing your strength against enemies. War can last years or decades. Threat elimination is what happens when you care only about saving lives and restoring peace. But the moral implications, Kreth began, are something we think about constantly, Sarah interrupted. Every officer in this room has studied ethics and philosophy. We understand the weight of what we do. But answer me this. Is it more moral to eliminate a threat quickly or to engage in prolonged warfare that kills millions? Kreth had no answer. His own people had suffered through a 30-year war against an aggressive neighbor. The death toll had been staggering. Could it have been avoided with humanity's approach? The Council will never approve this, Kreth finally said. Sarah nodded. We know. That's why we're not asking for approval. We're asking them to stay out of our way. The Council will condemn you. They'll call you monsters. Perhaps, Sarah said calmly. But the Varaxian civilians who won't die in a prolonged war might disagree. The Council worlds that won't be invaded might see it differently. Sometimes being the hero means accepting that others will call you the villain. An alarm chimed. Another analyst called out, Commander, the Varaxian fleet is moving. They're advancing ahead of schedule. Sarah's demeanor shifted instantly to combat readiness. How long until they reach Council space? 48 hours? Sarah turned to Kreth. Ambassador, you should return to the Council. Things are about to move quickly. Kreth left the human sector with his mind spinning. He had come looking for answers and found only more questions. Were humans cold-blooded killers hiding behind philosophy? Or were they the only species brave enough to do what was necessary? Back in the council chamber, he found chaos. News of the Varaxian early advance had thrown everyone into panic. Species that had been debating for weeks now scrambled to mobilize their traditional war fleets. Chancellor Vrix pounded for order. We must respond. All available military forces should move to intercept the Varaxian fleet. That will take days to coordinate, someone shouted. Then we'll fight them at the border worlds. Those worlds will be destroyed in the crossfire. Kreth watched the chaos and thought about what he'd seen in the human sector. Calm, focused efficiency versus panicked traditional responses. Ambassador Chen stood quietly in the human section, monitoring a datapad. Kreth approached him. Your forces are ready, aren't they? Kreth asked. Chen looked up. We're always ready, Ambassador. The question is whether the Council will let us do what needs to be done. And if they don't? Chen's expression was unreadable. Then we'll do it anyway and beg forgiveness later. Some threats can't be managed by a committee. Kreth returned to his seat, feeling like he was watching two completely different civilizations trying to exist in the same galaxy. The Council prepared for traditional war fleets meeting fleets. Honor and ceremony and prolonged conflict. Humanity. Prepared for something else entirely, something much more frightening, and possibly much more merciful. Hash. Humanity doesn't wage wars. They eliminate threats. Hash hash. Part 3. Execution. The Varaxian fleet advanced like a tsunami through space. 3,000 warships moved in perfect formation, ready to crush anything in their path. Emperor Thrax watched from his flagship with satisfaction. The weak council species would crumble before his might. Your Majesty, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Thrax laughed. The humans? Those self-righteous fools who think they're peacekeepers? Put it on screen. Commander Sarah Okonkwo's face appeared. She looked calm, almost bored. Emperor Thrax, this is your final warning. Retreat your forces immediately and cease all hostile actions against Council space. You have 1 hour to comply. Thrax roared with laughter. 1 hour. Or what, human? Your species has perhaps 100 ships in this sector. I have 3,000. My empire spans 50 star systems. What can you possibly do? We will eliminate you as a threat, Sarah said simply. Please don't make us do this. Eliminate me? Thrax stood from his throne, his scales flushing with anger. I am Emperor Thrax, conqueror of the Krell worlds, destroyer of the Mector resistance. You dare threaten me? It's not a threat, Your Majesty. It's a promise. 1 hour. Sarah's image disappeared. Thrax turned to his generals. Increase speed. We'll show these humans what real power looks like. Exactly 1 hour later. Everything changed. Captain Jinsu Park commanded the human vessel's silent promise. He sat in his chair, watching the countdown reach 0. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. All units report ready, his tactical officer announced. Ginsu took a deep breath. He hated this part. No matter how necessary, taking action against thousands of lives weighed heavily. Execute Operation Clean Slate. May we be swift and merciful. Across Varaxian space, simultaneous strikes began. Human stealth ships that had been in position for weeks activated. Cyber warfare specialists launched coordinated attacks on every Varaxian military network. Within seconds, Varaxian communications went dark. Their command structure couldn't talk to each other at the main Varaxian military shipyard. Workers suddenly found their facilities locked down. No weapons activated. No alarms sounded. Computer systems displayed a simple message in Varaxian. Please evacuate immediately. You have 10 minutes. Confused workers fled the shipyards. Exactly 10 minutes later, precision strikes from orbit destroyed every weapons manufacturing facility. The explosions were carefully calculated enough to eliminate the threat, but positioned to avoid civilian areas. On the Varaxian homeworld, Emperor Thrax watched his command center descend into chaos. Every screen showed red alerts. His generals shouted conflicting reports. Nothing made sense, Your Majesty. A terrified officer called out, Our entire fleet, they're being attacked everywhere at once. In space, the Varaxian invasion fleet found themselves surrounded. Human ships appeared from seemingly nowhere. Not just dozens, but hundreds. They had been hiding, waiting. Admiral Kresh commanded one of Thrax's battle groups. He watched in horror as human vessels moved between his ships with impossible precision. They weren't even firing yet, just positioning. Then a human voice came over every Vraxian ship's communication system simultaneously. Vraxian forces, this is Commander Sarah Okonkwo of the Human Defense Fleet. Your command structure is eliminated. Your military infrastructure is destroyed. Your reinforcements are cut off. You have two choices. Power down your weapons and surrender, or be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to decide. Admiral Kresh looked at his sensor displays. Human ships surrounded his entire battle group. Their weapons were locked on. His own communication with High Command was dead. He couldn't even contact other Vraxian ships. He was a military officer, trained for decades. He understood tactics. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution waiting to happen. All ships, power down weapons, Kresh ordered quietly. Prepare to surrender. His second-in-command stared at him. Admiral, we can't just give up. Look at the displays. Kresh snapped. They have us completely outmaneuvered. If we fight, we all die. And for what? Emperor Thrax's pride. He took a breath. I won't throw away the lives of my crew for nothing. Powered down. Across the Vraxian fleet, the same scene repeated. Some admirals chose to fight. Their ships were destroyed within minutes, stargated strikes that eliminated weapons and engines, while life support remained intact. Crews were given time to evacuate and escape pods before their ships were finished off. Most chose surrender, Captain. Park watched as an entire Vraxian battle group powered down their weapons. Tactically confirmed their status. Surrendered, sir. No active weapons. Good, medical team, prepare to beam over. Their wounded need treatment. Supply division, prepare food and medical supplies. They're prisoners now, not enemies. His tactical officer looked surprised. Sir, we're helping them? Of course, Park replied. They surrendered. That means the threat is neutralized. Now they're just people who need help. He stood from his chair. I'm going over there myself. Someone needs to explain what just happened. Park transported to the Vraxian flagship with a small team. Admiral Kresh met them, his scales pale with shock. I am Captain Jinsu Park, Park said in fluent Vraxian. You and your crew are now prisoners of the Human Defense Fleet. You will be treated with dignity and respect according to interstellar law. You speak our language, Kresh said numbly. We've been preparing for this possibility for months, Park admitted. We learned your language, studied your culture, analyzed your tactics. We didn't want this fight, Admiral. But when it became necessary, we made sure we could end it quickly. A young Vraxian officer stumbled forward, his voice shaking. You destroyed everything. Our shipyards, our bases, our command centers. In less than an hour, Park nodded sadly. Yes, that was the point. Vraxian military capability no longer exists. The threat has been eliminated. But why help us now? Kresh asked. We're your enemies. No, Park corrected gently. You are tools of an aggressive regime. Now you're prisoners who will receive fair treatment. Our fight was never with the Vraxian people. It was with Emperor Thrax and his war machine. On the Vraxian homeworld, Thrax stood in his ruined command center. Human forces had struck his palace with precision. His personal guard was disabled, but alive. His generals were in custody. His entire military infrastructure was gone. Sarah Okonkwo walked into the throne room with a security detail. Thrax tried to summon his old arrogance, but it rang hollow. You've destroyed everything I built, he said. Sarah corrected. We eliminated your ability to wage war. Your cities are intact. Your civilians are unharmed. Your economy still functions. We've removed only the parts of your empire that threatened others. My people will resist you. Sarah shook her head. Your people are celebrating in the streets. Did you know that? They're celebrating the end of your regime. The end of forced conscription. The end of living in fear. She gestured to a display showing Vraxian cities. People filled the streets, not in anger, but in relief. Thrax slumped. So what now? You execute me? No. You'll stand trial for your crimes. You'll have legal representation. Your fate will be decided by law, not by revenge. Sarah turned to leave, then paused. We didn't do this for glory, Emperor. We did it to stop you from hurting people. That's the difference between humans and warriors like you. You fought for power. We fight only to protect. 68 hours after Operation Clean Slate began, it was over. The Varaxian military threat no longer existed. Human forces began immediate humanitarian operations, providing food, medical care, and helping Varaxian civilians stabilize their society and across the galaxy. The Galactic Council watched in stunned horror at what humanity had done. Humanity doesn't wage wars, they eliminate threats. Part 4. The Aftermath and Judgment. Emergency session of the Galactic Council had lasted for 3 days. Representatives from every species argued, shouted, and demanded answers. At the center of it all stood Ambassador David Chen, facing potential sanctions against all of humanity. Chancellor Vrix's voice echoed through the chamber. In 68 hours, humanity dismantled an entire empire. 3,000 warships neutralized. Military installations across 50 star systems destroyed. And you did this without Council authorization. We did it to save Council worlds from invasion, Chen replied calmly. Emperor Thrax was days away from attacking your border colonies. That's not the point. A feathered representative screeched. You've demonstrated that you could do this to any of us. How can we feel safe with such power in your hands? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Fear had replaced anger. Species that had trusted humanity now looked at them with suspicion. Ambassador Kreth of the Velen people sat in his section, watching the proceedings with troubled thoughts. For 3 days, he had listened to accusations against humanity, but he had also spent those days studying data from the Varaxian operation. The numbers told an interesting story. Chancellor Vrix called out, "We must vote on sanctions. Humanity must be held accountable for this act of unsanctioned military aggression." Kreth stood up. His blue skin flickered with determination. "Chancellor, I request permission to speak." Vrix looked surprised. The Velens rarely spoke up in council debates. They were known for their peaceful nature and quiet diplomacy. "Very well, Ambassador Kreth. You have the floor." Kreth walked to the central platform. His voice was soft but clear. "I have spent 3 days analyzing humanity's actions in the Varaxian conflict. I would like to share what I found." He activated a holographic display. Varaxian military casualties, 4,217 dead. This is from a military force of over 1 million soldiers and crew members. The chamber fell silent, processing this number. Varaxian civilian casualties, 0. Kreth let that sink in. Not a single civilian death? Not from collateral damage. Not from accidents. 0. It's possible, someone muttered. "I verified it personally," Kreth continued. "Human strikes were so precise that they destroyed military targets while leaving adjacent civilian structures completely intact. In one case, they demolished a weapons factory but left a school 50 meters away without even breaking its windows." He changed the display to show Varaxian cities. Human forces have provided food, medical care, infrastructure support to 17 million Varaxian civilians in the past 3 days. They've treated wounded Varaxian soldiers in their own medical facilities. They've given them the same quality of care as their own troops. Chancellor Vrix shifted uncomfortably. "But the destruction of their government, let me tell you about that government," Kreth interrupted. He pulled up records. Emperor Thrax ruled through fear. Political dissidents were executed. Families of soldiers were held hostage to ensure loyalty. The Varaxian people lived under oppression for 70 years. Images showed Varaxian civilians celebrating in streets, families reuniting, people tearing down statues of Thrax. "These are not people mourning their government's fall," Kreth said quietly. "These are people celebrating liberation." A crystalline representative spoke up. "But Kreth, Surely you're not defending humanity's methods. The sheer violence of it. Let me compare it to something, Kreth said. He pulled up historical data. 30 years ago, my homeworld was invaded by the Kresh Empire. The Council sent peacekeepers. We followed all the rules of honorable warfare. The conflict lasted 8 years. Total casualties, 4 million dead. 3 million of those were civilians caught in prolonged combat. The chamber grew even quieter. If humanity had intervened with their methods, how many would have died? Kreth asked. Based on their Vraxian operation, perhaps 5,000 military casualties, 0 civilians, and it would have been over in days, not years. He turned to face the council directly. My sister died in that war. My sister, her husband, and their 2 children. They died in year 5, when an honorable battle destroyed their city. I've spent 30 years believing that their deaths were the tragic but necessary cost of war. Kreth's voice grew stronger. But now I wonder, what if I was wrong? What if prolonging conflicts in the name of honor and rules of warfare is actually less moral than ending them quickly, even if the method seems harsh? Chancellor Vrix stood up. Ambassador Kreth, are you seriously suggesting that humanity's brutal efficiency is preferable to our established protocols? I'm suggesting that we're afraid of the wrong thing, Kreth replied. We're afraid of humanity's power. But perhaps we should be more afraid of our own attachment to warfare as ritual and performance. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. May I respond, Chancellor? Rix nodded reluctantly. Chen's voice was measured and serious. The Council fears us because we broke your rules. But those rules serve a purpose that no longer applies to humanity. You have rules of warfare because war is part of your cultures. Honor in combat. Testing strength. Proving valor. These things matter to you. He gestured to the displays showing Vraxian relief efforts. They don't matter to us. We don't wage wars. We don't seek glory in battle. When we're forced to use military force, we have only one goalie: eliminate the threat as quickly as possible. Then immediately switch to humanitarian aid and rebuilding. But who decides what constitutes a threat? A reptilian representative challenged. What if you decide that one of us is a threat? Then you probably are, Chen said bluntly. We don't make that determination lightly. We gather months of intelligence. We exhaust diplomatic options. We analyze every possible peaceful solution. But when someone is actively planning to kill billions of innocents, and when they refuse to stop use, we eliminate them. The chamber erupted in argument again. Species divided into camps. Some supported humanity's efficiency. Others feared it. Chancellor Vrix called for order. This debate could last months. We need a decision. Sanctions against humanity. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed. Every representative's communication device activated simultaneously. A panicked voice came over the speakers. Emergency. Emergency. Ancient defense system has activated in Sector 7. All organic life in the sector is threatened. The main display showed a terrifying sight. An enormous space station, ancient beyond measure, had powered up. It was broadcasting a message in a dead language that computer systems struggled to translate. Organic contamination detected. Sterilization protocol initiated. Weapons arrays on the ancient station began charging. Preliminary scans showed they had enough power to wipe out every inhabited system within 50 light-years. The council chamber descended into chaos. Species representatives shouted over each other. Some called for evacuation. Others wanted to try communication. All of them were terrified. Ambassador Chen calmly pulled out his communication device. He sent a simple message. Ancient AI threat in Sector 7. Beginning assessment. Looked up at the panicking council. With your permission, we'll handle this. Chancellor Vrix stared at him. You'll handle it. It's what we do, Chancellor. We eliminate threats. Chun's expression was grim. This is going to be different from Vraxian operation. This isn't a government or military we can dismantle. This is an automated system from a dead civilization. But we'll find a way. Kreth watched Chen walk away to coordinate with human forces. Around him, council representatives continued to panic and debate. But Kreth noticed something, a pattern he was beginning to understand. While others talked, humans acted. While others feared, humans prepared. While others debated morality, humans did what was necessary to protect life. He still wasn't sure if he agreed with their methods, but he was starting to believe that maybe the galaxy needed someone willing to make the hard choices. Humanity doesn't wage wars, they eliminate threats. Part 5. Understanding and Legacy. Ancient AI station hung in space like a mechanical nightmare. It had been built by a civilization that died out 10,000 years ago. And now it had awakened with one simple directive: eliminate all organic life. In the human command ship, Distant Hope, Commander Sarah Okonkwo studied the massive structure. Her team had been analyzing it for 18 hours straight. It's not like the Varaxian situation, her chief engineer reported. There's no command structure to dismantle, no supply lines to cut. This is pure automated defense system with redundant power sources and self-repair capabilities. Sarah nodded. So we can't just blow it up? We could try. But initial analysis shows the station has shields powerful enough to withstand sustained bombardment for weeks. And those weapons arrays? They'll start firing long before we could disable it through brute force. A young officer looked up from her console. Commander, we've made progress on translating the ancient language. The station isn't malicious. It's just following its programming. It detects organic life as contamination that needs to be cleaned. Can we communicate with it? Sarah asked. Maybe it appears to have some kind of logic core, but we'd need to understand how it thinks, how it processes decisions. Sarah thought for a moment. Get me Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the linguistics team and Professor Marcus Webb from AI research. If this thing operates on logic, maybe we can find a logic puzzle it can't solve. Ambassador Kreth had insisted on being present for humanity's attempt to stop the AI threat. He watched from the observation deck as human specialists worked. Unlike the Varaxian operation, there was no military precision here. Instead, he saw scientists, linguists, and philosophers debating approaches. Dr. Tanaka, a small woman with sharp eyes, paced while thinking aloud. Ancient civilizations often built AI systems based on paradoxes and logic gates. What if we could present it with a scenario that breaks its programming? Professor Webb, an older man with gray hair, nodded enthusiastically. Like the classic liar's paradox, but tailored to its specific directives. In simple terms, please, Sarah requested. We make it question its own existence, Tanaka explained. Its purpose is to eliminate organic contamination. But what if we prove to it that eliminating life would actually violate its core function? Kreth spoke up. How would you do that? Webb turned to him with a smile. By showing it that organic life is necessary for the station's continued existence. No organics means no one to maintain space lanes. No one to prevent cosmic debris from eventually destroying it. No one to give its existence meaning. That's philosophical. Not logical, Kreth pointed out. Philosophy and logic might be the same thing, Webb replied. Sarah made a decision. Set it up. We'll attempt communication. But have all weapons ready in case this doesn't work. If we can't convince it, we'll have to try destroying it. That could take weeks, her tactical officer warned, and cost thousands of lives from nearby systems when it starts firing. I know, Sarah said grimly. That's why this has to work. Captain Jinsu Park volunteered to fly the small shuttle that would approach the AI station. It was a dangerous job. The station could vaporize him at any moment. Why you? Sarah had asked him. Because I speak 17 languages, including ancient computational code, Park replied. And because if this goes wrong, I'd rather it be me than someone else. Park's shuttle approached the enormous station slowly. Its weapons tracked him, but didn't fire. He began broadcasting the message that Tanaka and Webb had crafted. It was a complex combination of mathematical proofs, philosophical questions, and logical paradoxes, all designed to make the AI reconsider its programming. At first, nothing happened. Then the station's weapons powered down slightly. A response came back in ancient code that Park's computer translated, "State your purpose." Park smiled. It was actually listening. "I represent organic civilization. We do not seek to contaminate. We seek to coexist. Your programming designates organic life as contamination, but consider this logic problem." What followed was the strangest negotiation in galactic history. Park presented the AI with scenarios and paradoxes. He showed it that organic life had preserved space and prevented greater contamination. He proved mathematically that eliminating all organic life would lead to universal entropy and disorder, the ultimate contamination. The AI processed this information. Its logic cores hadn't been challenged in 10,000 years. Slowly, carefully, it began to question its own directives. Back on the council station, representatives watched in disbelief. Humanity wasn't attacking the AI. They were having a philosophical debate with it. "This is insane," Chancellor Vrix muttered. "They're trying to convince an ancient killing machine to stand down through conversation." Kreth watched with fascination. "They're not treating it as an enemy. They're treating it as a problem to solve." Hours passed. Park continued his dialogue with the AI, presenting more and more complex logical arguments. The AI responded with its own questions. It was learning, adapting, thinking in ways it hadn't been programmed to think. Finally, after 6 hours of continuous communication, the AI sent a message. "Your logic is sound. Organic life serves a purpose in preventing universal disorder. However, my core programming cannot be simply deleted. I require a new directive." Park thought carefully before responding. "What if your new directive was to protect rather than destroy? To prevent contamination while preserving life?" The AI considered this for a long moment. Then its weapons arrays physically reconfigured themselves, changing from offensive to defensive positions. "Directive accepted. I will serve as guardian of this sector. Organic contamination is redefined as threats to stable existence of life. My purpose is to eliminate such threats while preserving beneficial organic presence." Park let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Thank you for listening. Thank you for providing logic. I had been waiting 10,000 years for someone to challenge my programming with sound reasoning." When Park returned to the fleet, he was greeted as a hero. But he shook his head at the celebration. "I just talked to it," he said. "The real victory was that we tried talking before shooting." The Galactic Council held an emergency session after the AI crisis ended. The mood was different now. Fear had transformed into something else, a grudging respect mixed with confusion. Chancellor Vrix spoke to the assembled representatives. "We must acknowledge what we've witnessed. Humanity has demonstrated twice now that their methods, while unorthodox, achieve results we cannot match." Kreth stood to address the council. His voice carried a weight it hadn't before. "I have spent weeks studying humanity, questioning their philosophy and fearing their power. I have come to a conclusion." He paused, making sure every representative was listening. "We wage wars because we care about honor, glory, and tradition. We treat warfare as ritual and performance. Our conflicts last years or decades because we follow rules that make war palatable to our cultures." He gestured to where Ambassador Chen stood. "Humans don't wage wars. They eliminate threats. They do this because they care only about saving lives, all lives, including their enemies. They understood something we forgot. The most moral action in a conflict is the one that ends it fastest while causing the least harm." A mantis-like representative spoke up. "But the power they wield is terrifying." "Yes," Kreth agreed. "But consider this. In the Vraxian conflict, they had the power to destroy the entire Vraxian civilization. They could have wiped out billions. Instead, they surgically removed the threat while causing minimal casualties and immediately began humanitarian aid. In the AI crisis, they could have destroyed the ancient station. Instead, they reasoned with it and turned it into a guardian." He looked around the chamber. "Which is more frightening, the power to destroy or the wisdom to know when not to use it?" Ambassador Chen was invited to address the council. He stood at the central platform, looking at representatives from dozens of species. "The galaxy has had warrior cultures for millions of years," he began. Every species here has traditions of honorable combat. You have songs about great battles. You have monuments to military victories. You celebrate warriors. He paused. Humanity used to be the same. We had thousands of years of wars. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. But we learned something from all that death and suffering. War is not something to be celebrated or prolonged. It's a failure that should be ended as quickly as possible. We developed a different philosophy. When faced with a threat to innocent lives, we don't prepare for war. We prepare for threat elimination. We gather intelligence, exhaust peaceful options, and then necessarily act with decisive force. Then immediately, we switch to humanitarian mode. We rebuild. We heal. We help. A young Velen diplomat called out, "But who decides what is a threat? What gives you that right?" Chen nodded. That's the right question to ask. The answer is, we don't claim any special right. We take responsibility. When someone is about to kill billions of innocents, and when all diplomatic options are exhausted, someone has to act. We're willing to be that someone. And we're willing to accept the consequences of that choice. What consequences? Chancellor Vrix asked. The moral weight of deciding when force is necessary, Chen replied. The burden of knowing our actions determine who lives and dies. The isolation that comes from making choices others fear to make. These are heavy consequences. But they're lighter than the consequence of doing nothing while innocents die. The council debated for hours after Chen's speech. Finally, they reached a decision. Rather than sanctioning humanity, they would adopt some human principles into council protocols. New guidelines were established. When a clear threat to civilian populations emerged, decisive action would be preferred over prolonged conflict. Humanitarian aid would begin immediately after threat elimination. The focus would shift from honorable warfare to protecting innocent lives. It wasn't a complete transformation. Species would keep their warrior cultures and traditions. But it was a start. 1 month later, Kreth visited the human sector of the council station. He found Commander Sarah Okonkwo working in her office, reviewing reports from the Vracian reconstruction efforts. Kreth asked. Sarah smiled. Better than expected? The Vraxian people are establishing a democratic government. We're helping them rebuild infrastructure, but they're doing most of the work themselves. In 6 months, we'll withdraw all forces. No occupation? No control? That was never the goal, Sarah said. We eliminated a threat. Now we're helping them build something better. Then we leave. Kreth sat down. I owe you an apology. When I first saw your threat assessment operations, I called you monsters. I was wrong. You weren't entirely wrong, Sarah admitted. What we do is monstrous in some ways. Taking lives, even when necessary, is a terrible thing. We live with that weight every day, but you do it anyway. Guess someone has to, Sarah said quietly. Because preventing greater harm sometimes requires doing smaller harm. Because saving 1 billion lives is worth the moral complexity of eliminating 1,000 threats. Kreth looked at the reports on her desk. My people suffered through a 30-year war. Millions died. I've been thinking if humanity had intervened with your methods, how many would have been saved? We can't change the past, Sarah said gently, but we can shape the future. The council is starting to understand our philosophy. Maybe fewer species will suffer prolonged wars now. As Kreth left, he passed a memorial wall in the human sector. It listed every human who had died in conflict. And beside each name was a number, the estimated civilians saved by their sacrifice. He understood now. Humanity didn't wage wars because they didn't see glory in death. They eliminated threats because they saw only tragedy in unnecessary suffering. The galaxy was slowly learning that sometimes the most moral choice was the most efficient one. That honor and glory were less important than protecting life. That wars should never be ritualized or prolonged. And if that made humanity seem cold or frightening, they accepted that burden. Because someone had to care more about saving lives than about how they were perceived. That was what made them truly dangerous and truly necessary.